A 19-year-old and a 20-year-old are dead, while a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old are in critical condition after a shooting in Ypsilanti Township yesterday. The sheriff's office says the two teens in the hospital are expected to survive.
Deputies tell us the teenagers were brothers. Investigators are trying to figure out what led up to the incident, and they haven't ruled out a connection to another shooting involving several teens in Ann Arbor last Thursday.
Joining us tonight is Derrick Jackson, Director of Community Engagement at the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office. Thank you for joining us today, Derrick.
Thank you for having me.
So we know this is an active investigation. This just happened, but what can you tell us right now about what might have led up to this shooting?
Well, investigators are still trying to figure out exactly what happened, what precipitated the event, and who's responsible. So one of the things we really want to get out to the community tonight is that we need the community's help. So we have an anonymous tip line for people to call at 734-973-7711. But as far as the case goes, unfortunately, we had 4 young people from 14 to 20 years old who were shot. And just one small correction. Originally, we put out that the 19-year-old was deceased. It actually was the 16-year-old brother who was deceased along with the 20-year-old, not the 19-year-old. So I just wanted to update that information.
You know, you told our reporter Meredith Bruckner that you have a connection to these individuals. Can you explain what that is and just how much this hits close to home for you?
Yeah, I mean, part of my job as a social worker who became a police officer is that intersection of community and police work. And the 3 siblings live down the street from me. They grew up, they play with my daughter. I literally changed one of their diapers when they were younger. So all of them are tragic. All of them hurt a little bit. All of them make you angry. And all of them perpetuate you to want to do more work, to do more in the community to make things better. But when you know the young people and you watch them grow up, it hits a little closer to home.
Yeah, we can only imagine. What do you know about the guns that were used? Do you know where they got them from?
So we don't know in this case, although I've been really taking the opportunity to let people know that to law-abiding gun owners, we ask them to make sure you secure your weapons. We've been seeing an increase in the number of weapons and firearms left in vehicles. And then young people who are not professional car thieves who are learning how to break into cars, but literally walking down the street, flipping door handles, finding the car that's unlocked, and finding an unsecured weapon in that vehicle. So there's lots of information out there now that talks about young people are gaining access to weapons by breaking into cars and stealing an unsecured weapon. So one of the things I mentioned earlier was just taking that opportunity to remind all of us, if you have that weapon, make sure you secure it and definitely don't leave it in your car unlocked.
Along those lines, more and more kids are dying due to gun violence and getting their hands on guns. We've seen it here in Metro Detroit over the last few months, just over and over again. What needs to be done, at least in your community? What do you think needs to be done?
Well, I'm a part of what's called the Community Violence Intervention Team here in Washtenaw, which is made up of community members with lived experience, moms who've lost their sons, some people who have actually gone to prison for taking a life, and then political officials like myself. There are 14 things we think we can do in our community. A lot of them have to do with identifying those young people who need the help and making sure we have these off-ramps so they never feel the need to pick up a weapon. We often think of these kids or the people who pull the trigger as these monsters, but in a lot of cases what we found is they're fearful kids and they pick up a weapon because our communities do not feel safe. And so for me as an adult, that's a call to action. We need to do better to make sure our communities are safer. And that includes everyone, not just the police, but it really does all of our community coming together.
So in your community engagement role, how do you overcome those barriers? How do you gain the trust of young people who don't necessarily want to hear what officials or what older folks have to say?
That's a great question because it's not just about officials, right? What we do in our community is, we hire people who are the experts on community. They're people who are from the neighborhood. And it's not just who work for the sheriff's office. We have that. But it's also investing in those individuals who are really skilled at this anti-violence work. In Washtenaw County, about 80 to 85% of the shootings are retaliatory in nature, meaning something happens to me and I want to have someone else feel my pain. So we know if someone is violated or assaulted or shot or stabbed and they're in that hospital room, that's a perfect opportunity for the right people to go in there with that golden opportunity to hopefully deal with that anger and that trauma that breeds retaliation. And so that's just one way that we in our community are really trying to address this issue.
Do you think you have hardcore, detailed answers as far as this investigation and know where this thing is headed?
I wouldn't say that. I really do think that we have some great investigators. We also have some great community partners. And so people want to see their neighborhood safe. But I will say this. We need community to step forward. If there can be just a small sense of justice for the families who have lost their loved ones, it's going to take us as neighbors and community members to step forward and share. What do you know? It may be something small to you and seem insignificant, but it could be a major break in the case for us. So we just really ask people to step up, have the courage to say something, even if you have to do it anonymously through our anonymous tip line. Help us bring this person to justice.
All right, Derrick Jackson, Director of Community Engagement with the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Office. Derrick, thanks for your time today and for everything you're doing in the community.
Thank you.